Hi there. For the next few weeks, we'll be embarking on some deep dives into each of the three areas of the triple bottom line, starting with the social issues and how to solve them. We have two assignments that you'll be doing this week. First, as we think about organizations, from homes to global corporations, you'll be doing some secondary research into social issues for your setting. Then you'll be using a new tool to explore solutions and technologies that you could create to have an impact on your setting and your life. As we've seen over the last 2 weeks, the Sustainable Development Goals address a number of social issues like poverty, hunger, health, and the others that are listed here. And you have identified the stakeholders who are affected by these issues in the setting that you have chosen. You started by conducting primary research, that is, interviews with stakeholders who are affected by these issues. Take a moment to remember what social issues they identified. Note that your colleagues took roles as your stakeholders, and you should critically think about how accurate their input might be. But it's likely that many of them could relate to your setting and identify what stakeholders in that setting are saying, doing, thinking, or feeling. Now, in the first assignment, you'll be conducting some secondary research. Secondary research is the research you're used to doing, using existing sources like books, academic journals, reports, websites, government statistics, or company records, rather than collecting new or primary data yourself. Both are important to getting a full picture. So this week, you are going to conduct some secondary research on your social SDGs. How are your stakeholders in your setting dealing with your SDG? Note, you are welcome to use AI in your research. In fact, it's hard to avoid it, since it shows up in every search. But you may use the AI of your choice. However, you must cite your sources and evaluate the credibility of those sources before using the information. You may have to prompt the AI to provide its sources. Once you have researched the current problems and the reactions to those, in the first assignment, you'll be converting those to the first step in a gap analysis. A gap analysis outlines your current state, the desired state, and the gaps. In the second assignment, you will be interacting with your colleagues to brainstorm how to close those gaps. So in your first assignment, create a table that addresses your social SDG, not all of them, only the one or ones that you've been analyzing. Summarize your secondary research in the first column of that table. What are the stakeholders experiencing, and how are they currently dealing with problems? What are the current solutions that are not working very well? Then evaluate the gap. What are stakeholders not able to do? How are they not able to meet their needs? Finally, visualize a better future. Where do we want our stakeholders to be? Note that while this assignment is in the form of a discussion board, you are not required to have any replies. The reason for having it in a discussion board is so you can see what your colleagues are saying. This may help you in the second assignment this week. Next, let's look at our second assignment of the week. This is a highly interactive assignment. You'll be asking 3 questions in your first post, answering 3 posts, and summarizing your insights in a final 4th post. In this discussion, we'll be using a new tool called Packback to help us have more engaging conversations. Packback is a tool that allows us to think differently about online discussions. In traditional discussions, I provide the prompt and you answer. In Packback, I will give you 1 or more topics, and you get to ask your own open-ended questions on the topics and engage with one another. You'll be creating 3 questions so that your colleagues can help you develop novel, cutting-edge, and feasible solutions where you could have a significant impact on your social issue by developing an exciting innovation. You'll also be exploring your environmental and economic SDG over the next couple weeks, and will be developing a prototype of one of those innovations. So let me give you a little background on each of the topics so that you can create some excellent questions, and so your colleagues can give you some really useful advice. For your first question, you'll want to make some adjustments to the empathy map that you created last week. Develop a question for your colleagues that will give you some insight on what pains your stakeholders are experiencing and what they could gain if their pain were relieved. Depending on how you frame your question, your colleagues may take the role of one of your stakeholders or may simply answer as themselves. Note, you do not have to recreate the empathy map. The second question you want to ask is to help you find out why your social issue is causing pain to your stakeholders. You may have seen a tool that can be helpful for doing a root cause analysis. It's called a cause and effect diagram, also known as a fishbone diagram or an Ishikawa diagram for the developer of the tool. While you will not have to do the diagram, you may find it helpful in developing your question and your answers. In a fishbone diagram, you would brainstorm all the possible causes that lead to the effect on your social issue in the setting that you've selected. The diagram gives you some focus on likely areas that might have a negative impact. For example, people problems that have a negative effect on the SDG 4 quality education might include poor teacher training and disruptive behavior in the classroom. To delve deeper into the root cause, you can ask up to 5 whys. Continuing with our previous example, you might ask why there is disruptive behavior, and you might come up with several thoughts: a lack of consequences, or a lack of interest, or a lack of understanding. If you then ask another why about lack of understanding, you might come up with the one-size-fits-all instruction that leaves a lot of students behind. So your second question should search for the problems that impact your social issue in your setting, and encourage your colleagues to think deeply to come up with root causes. Note, the purpose of this question is to identify problems that are solvable at our level. So try to develop a question that elicits more than just global problems or government solutions. We are the entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs that are going to make a difference through our creative innovations. And now for the third and most fun question. How can technology help? Here are a few of the latest technologies that might be used in some of your solutions. So think outside the box. How can technology help you solve your problem? Ask your colleagues to brainstorm solutions using phenomenal cutting-edge technology that we have at our fingertips. Again, try to elicit practical ideas that you might be able to develop into an invention or an app or a new way of doing things using technology. Note, you may need funding for your innovation. That's okay. You'll be creating a prototype and a pitch that you can show to interested angel investors. In your last post, reflect on your research, the interaction you've had, and your own critical thinking. One of the human-centered design tools that you read about this week was framing your design challenge. That is, defining your problem as a design challenge. So ask yourself, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Frame it as a design question, state the ultimate impact that you're trying to have, what are some of the possible solutions to your problems, and are there any context or constraints that you need to be worried about? This slide shows you the form from the reading that can help you summarize what you've learned this week for your last post. So now it's your turn. Assignment 1 is the secondary research and the gap analysis. And assignment 2 is the interactive brainstorming for high-tech, high-impact solutions. Have fun with it.